A hospital in the United States charged a couple $39.35. Not for the surgery, not for the drugs, not for the room, for holding their baby. They charged them for the first moment of their child's life. Most people see that story and think, what a mistake, what a glitch. Someone keyed in the wrong code. But what if it wasn't a glitch? What if that $39 charge is the most honest thing the system has ever shown you? Having a child in the United States without insurance, $15,712 for a normal delivery, $28,998 for a C-section. Childcare in New York City, $38,126 per year for one infant. Women who become mothers lose, on average, between 20 and 30% of their lifetime earnings. And the men who become fathers, their pay goes up. This isn't about whether you can afford diapers. This is about something much larger and much older. This is about who gets permission to have a family. If you've thought about having kids and felt something tighten in your chest, that's not weakness, not selfishness, not immaturity. That feeling has a name, and it's not anxiety. It's arithmetic. The General Social Survey has been asking Americans how many children they want for decades. The number people say they want has barely moved. It sits at around 2.5. For 50 years. The number of children people are actually having? 1.6, and falling. That gap between what people want and what they're doing is not a generation deciding they prefer dogs and travel. That gap is a door that closed. In survey after survey, when young adults are asked why they're having fewer children than they planned, or none at all, the same answer comes back. Money. Not lifestyle, not preference, not TikTok. Money. In 1970, a single income, one average salary, could buy a house, raise a family, and keep someone home if needed. Not comfortably, not lavishly, but possible. Then something shifted, quietly, without announcement. Housing prices stopped moving with wages. They started moving with something else, with investment returns, with asset speculation, with what someone in another city would pay. By the time you arrived in the job market, buying a home on one income wasn't frugal, it was fantasy. Which meant both of you had to work, full-time, all the time, which meant someone had to watch the child. And that someone now costs $38,000 a year in New York, $29,000 in Los Angeles, for one child before school age. Run the numbers. For millions of couples, one person's entire salary goes directly to childcare, directly to zero. So the second income that was supposed to make family life possible exists solely to pay for the service that makes the second income possible. It's a perfect trap. In the 1970s, childcare in most of the Western world was informal. Family, neighbors, community. A patchwork, yes, but essentially free. Then private capital discovered it. What looked like a social good, parents need childcare to work, turned out to also look like a captive market. People who needed this service would pay almost anything for it, because the alternative was losing the job. Private equity firms started buying daycare chains. 15 of the 16 largest childcare companies in America have received private equity investment. The business model is simple. Acquire, cut staff ratios, raise prices, repeat. In Australia, in 2009, the world's largest childcare provider, ABC Learning, collapsed under the weight of its own private equity expansion. It had grown so fast, on so much borrowed money, that when the debt came due, it simply folded. 80,000 children lost their childcare places overnight. The government had to step in with an emergency bailout, not to save the business, to save the children. There's a number that doesn't appear on any invoice. It's not on the hospital bill. It's not in the childcare brochure. But it's real, and it has been measured. When a woman becomes a mother, her earnings drop, on average, measurably, permanently. 20 to 30% of her lifetime income. Not because she became less capable, because she became less available, less promotable, less worth the investment. The man who becomes a father sees his pay go up, an average of 6%, because employers read fatherhood as stability, commitment, seriousness. Motherhood is read as a liability. And then there's London. A full-time nursery for a child under 2 takes, on average, 70% of a minimum wage earner's gross pay. Post-tax, 80%. 80%. You would be working, effectively, to pay someone else to raise your child, and coming home with 20% left over for everything else. More than half of the United States, 51% of the population, lives in what researchers call a childcare desert. Not a metaphor, a technical term. An area where the number of licensed childcare slots is less than a third of the number of children who need them. That data is from 2018. Since then, thousands of facilities have closed. So it's not just expensive. In large parts of the country, it doesn't exist. There is a phrase that gets thrown around when this topic comes up: lifestyle choice. As if 50% of the population simultaneously decided, based purely on preference, that they wanted smaller families. As if the desire went away. The desire didn't go away. The permission did. That's what this is. A permission economy. The system didn't remove your right to have a family. That would be too obvious, too easy to oppose. Instead, it inserted a price at every step. The birth, the care, the housing upgrade you need for the extra room, the career you quietly deprioritize, the pension contributions you never made in the years you were home. And because each price feels individual, a hospital bill here, a nursery fee there, it never quite looks like a system. It looks like your situation, your failure to plan, your city, your timing. It's not. There's a counter-argument that always comes up. People in poorer countries have more children. If cost was the real barrier, that makes no sense. In the way most people think. An economist named Gary Becker spent decades studying fertility patterns. His conclusion was uncomfortable. In subsistence economies, where formal systems barely exist, children are assets. Labor, insurance, someone to work the farm, someone to carry you when you're old. In a developed economy, a knowledge economy, children become something different. They become the most expensive thing you will ever do. Not because children changed, because the economy changed around them. Another argument: our grandparents were poor, they had 5 kids. True, they also lived in a world where one income could cover a mortgage, where family and community absorbed childcare for free, where a woman wasn't expected back at her desk 6 weeks after surgery, where schools didn't require a tablet and a broadband connection just to participate. The inputs changed. The comparison doesn't hold. Here is where the machine is heading. Birth rates below replacement level don't stay an economic footnote for long. Fewer workers, smaller tax base, pension systems built for populations that no longer exist. The governments that presided over this, that quietly dismantled childcare subsidies, that let housing prices inflate beyond any worker's reach, that let private capital colonize the nursery, are now panicking. They are offering baby bonuses, tax credits, small sums of money handed out at birth, against $38,000 a year in childcare, against a motherhood penalty that compounds across decades, against a housing market that requires 2 incomes just to stay still. The machine built a world where starting a family requires significant capital, and now it is surprised the family isn't happening. The $39 charge made headlines because it felt absurd. But absurdity requires contrast. It required people who still believed that moment, skin against skin, first breath, first second, existed outside the market. Most systems in the modern world do not share that belief. The cost of having a child is not a series of unfortunate prices. It is a policy, assembled over 50 years, by governments that chose asset inflation over family stability, By a childcare industry that discovered parents are the most captive market that exists. By a labor market that still, quietly, treats a mother as an incomplete worker. Most people who feel the weight of this assume they're the problem. They look at the numbers that don't add up and they think, I should have planned better, saved more, chosen differently. You're watching this video, which means you already know it's not that. The only question left is this. When a society makes reproduction this expensive, what exactly is it trying to reproduce?